All right, so you're here because you want to get up to speed quickly on things that really matter.
Yeah.
And today we are going deep on something that's kind of a hidden piece of the tech world.
Uh-huh.
You might not even know it's there, but it's actually driving a ton of innovation all around us.
Right.
And that is the digital isolator market.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not just like a little thing that's happening in the corner. I mean, this is huge.
Yeah.
It's exploding, in fact. I mean, we're looking at a global market that was worth over $2 billion in 2024, 2,154.6 million to be exact.
Wow.
And by 2032, it's projected to more than double.
Really?
That's right, to over $4 billion, USD 230.6 million.
Wow.
And that's a compound annual growth rate of 8.8%.
So like almost 9% growth every year for almost a decade.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredibly fast, right? And what's really interesting to me is, what's driving this? What's behind this surge?
Okay. So I think we need to start there, right? Like digital isolators. What are these things?
Yeah.
And like, why is this market growing so much?
Okay, so think of digital isolators like essential gatekeepers for digital signals.
Okay.
They allow information to flow, right, between different parts of an electronic system, but without any direct electrical connection between them. And that's absolutely vital.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
It protects sensitive components from high voltages,
Got right.
which could be dangerous.
Yeah.
And it also stops electrical noise, disruptive interference from messing things up.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, of course, it makes sure the data actually gets where it needs to go and does it reliable. I mean, we rely on this stuff working
Totally.
all the time.
Right.
So we have this ever-increasing demand for faster data speeds, right?
Yeah. More and more and more.
All the time. And we also need safety, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, our world is becoming so electrified.
Yeah.
So those two things are the main drivers. But then on top of that, the technology itself is improving all the time.
So it's like a perfect storm.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give you a little taste of how these things actually work.
Yeah.
There are different ways of doing this.
Okay.
You can use magnetic fields to transmit the information. You can even use light.
Oh, wow.
Each method has its own advantages, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay, so they're like the silent guardians.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, making sure our tech doesn't like fry itself.
Right.
While keeping everything connected.
Yeah.
And the report says this is in like everything, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Cars, factories, phones, medical devices, even just like gadgets, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about how advanced cars are these days.
Totally.
I mean, packed with sensors,
yeah,
processors everywhere.
Right.
For everything from safety systems to keeping us entertained.
Yeah.
Or those massive automated factories.
Yeah.
With robots and complex controls.
Yeah, you think about like a modern car factory, it's crazy.
It's mind-blowing, yeah.
Yeah.
All that relies on secure and reliable data flow.
Right.
And that's where our digital isolators come in.
They're essential.
They are.
Okay, yeah.
And then you get the rise of EVs.
Oh, yeah.
Electric vehicles, right?
Huge.
Yeah, I mean, with those powerful batteries.
Right, high voltage.
You need really effective isolation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's just pushed demand even higher.
So that really puts the whole growth thing into perspective. Like, it's not just that things are getting more complex. It's that there's just like more of everything.
Right. More devices, more connections.
More demand.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so our mission today is to try to figure out who the key players are in this market.
Yeah.
And the report gives us a pretty good rundown of the top manufacturing companies.
It does.
So by understanding who those leaders are,
yeah,
we can start to see where the innovation is happening, who's setting the pace, and, where things are going in the future.
Exactly. I mean, you see who's at the top.
Yeah.
And you start to understand what's important.
Right.
What's driving the market.
Okay, so before we get into the specific companies, the report talked about how they actually evaluated them.
Right.
It wasn't just like who sold the most.
No, it was much more than that.
Yeah. What were the main things they looked at?
Okay, so obviously financial stability, right? You got to make money.
Yeah.
So revenue.
Makes sense.
And overall market share. That's crucial.
So like how big a piece of the pie do they have?
Exactly. Strong sales means high demand. Right?
Yeah.
And market share shows how influential they are.
Okay.
But it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
The breadth of their product portfolio is also really important.
Okay, what does that mean?
So like, what range of isolation voltages do their products offer? Data speeds.
Okay.
Different types of signals. And really importantly, what specific applications are their isolators actually designed for?
So is it like they're trying to be everything to everyone?
Yeah.
Or are they like super focused?
Yeah, that's the key question, right?
Right.
Are they a mile wide and an inch deep, or are they laser focused?
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What else did they look at?
Okay, well, technological innovation, that's a big one.
Okay.
The companies that are really pushing the envelope,
Yeah.
developing isolators with higher performance, using less energy,
Yeah.
better isolation, more reliability.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are seen as the leaders.
Makes sense, right? If you're not innovating in tech,
Yeah.
you're falling behind.
You're dead in the water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's their global footprint, right?
Okay.
And they serve markets all around the world.
Right.
Capitalize on growth wherever it's happening.
Yeah. So it's not just about being big in one place.
Exactly.
You got to be everywhere.
Yeah, global reach is key. And then critically, there's their investment in R&D.
Research and development.
That's right.
Okay.
The companies that are pouring resources into R&D.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are going to shape the future of this technology.
So those are the ones to really watch.
Absolutely. That's where the breakthroughs come from.
Right. And the report also mentioned something about strategic collaborations.
It did, yeah.
How does that play into all this?
Okay, so strategic partnerships, especially with companies in big sectors,
Okay.
like automotive, industrial automation, telecom.
Right, it's the big users.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They can really help a company expand its reach
Yeah, that makes sense.
and strengthen its products.
Hmm.
So imagine integrating your isolators into larger, more complex systems.
Right, so it's not just about the isolator itself.
No, it's about how it fits into the bigger picture.
It's about the whole package.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's all these factors together
Yeah.
that give us a sense of a company's strength and their potential in the future.
Right. It's a really comprehensive view.
Okay, so with that in mind, who are these top companies?
Okay, so the report identifies 5 companies
Right.
as the leading manufacturers
Okay.
in the digital isolator market.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right, so we've got Infineon Technologies AG,
Okay.
ST Microelectronics,
Okay.
NXP Semiconductors,
Okay.
Analog Devices,
Okay.
and ROHM Semiconductor.
All right, 5 big names.
Yeah, these are the top dogs.
Okay, so let's start with Infineon Technologies AG.
Right.
They're based in Germany, right?
Yeah, their headquarters are in Neubiberg, Germany,
Okay.
and their total revenue in 2023
Yeah.
was massive,
Yeah.
$16.53 billion.
Wow.
And a big chunk of that, $1.2 billion,
Okay.
came from their automotive division.
Right, which includes the vehicle mount computers.
Exactly. Those things are becoming so sophisticated.
They really are.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's interesting about Infineon is how deeply they're involved in the automotive industry. And it's really driven by their advanced semiconductor solutions.
Okay.
For example, their AURIX microcontroller series.
Okay.
That provides the processing power that modern vehicles need.
So that's like the brains of the operation.
It is, yeah. It's handling all sorts of critical tasks.
Okay, and why is this relevant to, like our listeners?
Well, it shows how crucial advanced computing is in cars.
Right.
And by extension, how important high-performance isolation is.
Yeah, okay, I see that.
These systems need to be reliable
Totally.
and protected.
Okay.
And that's where the digital isolators come in.
So the report also mentioned that they won some big contracts in 2023.
They did, yeah.
What was that about?
Well, they secured some major deals to supply their semiconductor solutions
Okay.
for the next generation of vehicle mount computers, really showing that they're seen as a key innovator
Yeah.
in this rapidly evolving space.
Makes sense.
They're not just keeping up.
Yeah.
They're ahead of the curve.
Right.
And their commitment to R&D really shows that
Wow.
they're exploring things like AI-driven systems
Interesting.
and energy-efficient solutions.
So they're thinking long term.
They are. Yeah, they're not just meeting current demands.
Right.
They're anticipating future needs.
Okay, that's impressive.
Yeah, they're one to watch for sure.
Okay, so moving on to ST Microelectronics,
Okay.
headquartered in Switzerland.
That's right, Geneva, Switzerland.
Okay.
And their total sales in 2023 were even bigger.
Then Infineon.
Yeah.
Okay.
$17.29 billion.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And about $4 billion of that
Yeah.
came from their automotive sector.
So again, including those vehicle mount computers.
Yeah, that seems to be a big focus for these companies.
This makes sense, right?
Yeah, it's a huge market.
Yeah.
Okay, so ST Microelectronics is a global leader in semiconductor solutions,
Okay.
but they have a really strong emphasis on the automotive market.
Okay.
Their vehicle mount computers are known for their processing power, their connectivity, and their ability to handle tough conditions.
Yeah, like extreme temperatures and vibration.
Exactly. All the things that come with being in a car.
Right.
And their SPC5 microcontroller family
Okay.
is specifically designed for those demands.
So they're really tailoring their products to the specific needs
They are, yeah. They understand the automotive market.
of the car industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And they're investing heavily in the future of vehicles as well.
So, like Infineon, they're also looking ahead.
Yeah, they're putting a lot of money into R&D,
Okay.
focused on autonomous driving.
Self-driving cars.
That's right.
Wow.
And electric vehicles.
So all the really big trends.
Yeah, the things that are going to transform the industry.
Okay.
They also formed some strategic alliances in 2023
Interesting.
to enhance their vehicle mount computer capabilities.
So they're collaborating to innovate,
Exactly. They're not afraid to work with others.
to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah, they're being proactive.
Okay, so next up we have NXP Semiconductors,
Right.
based in the Netherlands.
That's right, Eindhoven, Netherlands.
Okay, and what did they do in 2023?
Okay, so total sales of $13.28 billion.
Okay, so still a huge player.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
And $3.2 billion of that
Okay.
came from their automotive segment.
Including vehicle mount computers again.
Yep, it's a common theme.
It really is, yeah.
So NXP specializes in high-performance semiconductor solutions,
Okay.
specifically tailored for the automotive industry.
So another company really focused on that market.
Yeah, they're known for their advanced connectivity,
Okay.
their safety features,
Uh-huh.
and their powerful processing capabilities.
Right, all the things that modern cars need.
Exactly.
Right.
And their S32 family of microcontrollers and processors is
Okay.
really central to their automotive innovations.
So those are like the building blocks.
Yeah, the core components that enable all the cool stuff.
Okay, so what makes them stand out in terms of like future tech?
Well, they have a really strong R&D focus
Okay.
on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and edge computing.
So they're thinking about like AI in cars.
Yeah, I mean, those are all going to be huge in the automotive landscape.
Yeah, especially with, self-driving cars and all that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that makes sense.
And they've got a global reach
Okay.
and partnerships with major car manufacturers.
OEMs.
Yeah, and tier one suppliers.
Okay, so they're well positioned to get their tech into the next generation of vehicles.
They are, yeah. They have the relationships and the expertise.
Okay, that's a powerful combination.
It is.
Okay, so now let's talk about analog devices.
Okay.
This is the first U.S.-based company on the list.
That's right. They're headquartered in Norwood, USA.
Okay, and what are they known for?
Okay, so they had total sales of $9.43 billion in 2023.
Okay.
And $1.2 billion of that came from their automotive sector.
All right, so still a significant player.
Oh, yeah, definitely. They provide solutions for both general automotive applications. Yeah.
And vehicle mount computing.
Right, so they're not as narrowly focused as some of the others.
Yeah, they've got a broader portfolio.
Okay.
But their focus is always on performance,
Okay.
low power consumption, and reliability.
So they're all about making sure their stuff works really well.
Exactly. They're known for their quality.
Okay.
And their ADSP SC589 series is designed specifically for the demands of automotive.
So they do have products specifically for cars.
They do, yeah. They understand the unique challenges.
Okay.
And they're investing heavily in the future of transportation, too.
So like electric vehicles and autonomous driving.
Exactly. Okay. They're putting a lot of resources into integrating AI and machine learning into their systems.
So they're right there on the cutting edge.
Yeah, they're not just following the trends.
They're helping to create them.
Exactly.
Okay, so last but not least, we have ROHM Semiconductor.
Okay.
They're based in Japan, right?
That's right, Kyoto, Japan.
Okay, and what's their story? So total sales in 2023 were $3.31 billion.
Okay.
And about $500 million of that came from their automotive sector.
So a little smaller than some of the others.
Yeah, but still a major player.
Okay.
They're known for their reliable and energy-efficient solutions.
Okay.
Especially for things like ADAS.
What's that?
Advanced Driver Assistance System.
Oh, right, like lane keeping and adaptive cruise control.
Exactly. Those are becoming standard in a lot of cars.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah.
And ROHM is also involved in infotainment systems.
Okay.
And telematics.
So all the connected car stuff?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, and what's their main strength?
They're really focused on power efficiency.
Okay.
and automotive-grade components.
So their stuff is built to last.
Yeah, they're all about quality and reliability.
Okay.
And they're also active in forming partnerships and alliances.
So they're looking to collaborate?
Yeah, they're working with others to expand their reach.
Okay, so we've got our big five. But the report also talked about some emerging threats.
It did, yeah.
So it's not just these established companies, right?
No, not at all.
Okay, so who else is making moves in this market?
Okay, so the report highlights Broadcom Inc.,
Okay.
Texas Instruments Inc.,
Uh-huh.
Maxim Integrated,
Okay.
Renesas Electronics Corporation,
Okay.
and Silicon Labs.
So it's pretty big names in there, too.
Yeah, these are companies to watch.
Okay, so what makes them threats?
Well, they're doing a few things really well.
Okay.
First of all, they're advancing their product lines,
Okay.
and they're focusing on the areas where demand is highest.
So they're being strategic.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, can you give me some examples?
Sure, so take Broadcom.
Okay.
They're developing digital isolators with really high isolation voltages
Okay.
and faster data rates.
So they're all about speed and safety?
Yeah, which is crucial in things like automotive,
Right.
industrial applications, and
Yeah.
communications.
Makes sense. Those are all areas where, things can't fail.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about Maxim Integrated?
They're focused on ultra-low power isolators,
Okay.
which is really important for industrial and medical applications.
Where energy efficiency is key.
Yeah, especially if you're dealing with battery-powered devices.
Right, or anything that's sensitive to power consumption.
Exactly.
Okay, and how about Renesas?
They're already big in the automotive industry,
Okay.
and they're leveraging that
Okay.
by integrating their digital isolators into car control systems.
So they're using their existing position?
Yeah, they have the relationships and the trust,
Okay.
and they're focusing on EVs and autonomous vehicles.
So the future of the industry.
Exactly.
Okay, and what's Silicon Labs doing?
They're all about capacitive isolation technology,
Okay.
which is really good for high-speed data transmission
Okay.
while still keeping power consumption low.
So they're kind of like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, they're a real contender.
Okay, so it sounds like these companies aren't trying to, take over the whole market.
No, they're being more targeted.
Yeah, they're finding their niches.
Exactly.
Okay, so what does the report say about new companies that might want to enter this market?
Okay, so it really emphasizes the importance of innovation.
Okay.
You got to develop cost-effective isolation technologies.
Right, because there are already big players out there.
Yeah, so you need to offer something unique.
Okay.
And it specifically points to optical, capacitive, and magnetic digital isolators
Okay.
as having a lot of potential.
So those are the technologies to focus on,
Yeah, they offer high speed and energy efficiency.
which are both really important.
Absolutely.
Okay, so besides focusing on the technology, what else should new entrants keep in mind?
Well, R&D is crucial.
Okay.
You got to invest in research and development,
Right.
but it needs to be targeted.
Okay.
You got to address the needs of specific industries.
So, what does the automotive industry need?
Yeah, what are their pain points?
What are their challenges?
Exactly.
Okay.
For example, the automotive industry needs high isolation of voltages.
Right, for safety.
Yeah, they can't afford any failures.
Makes sense.
And then you've got low power consumption
Okay.
and reliability. Those are always important.
Yeah, those are table stakes?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, and it seems like picking the right markets to target is also important.
It is, yeah. You got to go where the growth is.
Okay.
So things like EVs,
Right.
renewable energy,
Uh-huh.
and the Internet of Things.
IoT.
Yeah, all those areas are going to need a lot of digital isolators.
Okay, so it's about finding the right fit for your technology.
Exactly.
Okay, and the report also talked about geographic focus.
It did, yeah.
What was that about?
So the Asia-Pacific region is a huge opportunity
Okay.
because that's where a lot of the manufacturing is happening.
Right, like cars and electronics.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Okay.
So new companies should think about expanding into that region.
So it's not just about where you're based
No, it's about where your customers are.
and where the growth is happening.
Exactly.
Okay, and it's interesting to see that, even in this very technical field, broader trends are still important.
They are.
The report mentioned something about sustainability.
It did, yeah.
What was that about?
So more and more customers are caring about environmental responsibility
Okay.
and sustainability.
Right, so it's not just about the product itself
No, it's about how it's made.
and what it's made of.
Yeah, the whole life cycle.
Okay, so to sum up our deep dive,
Yeah.
The digital isolator market is growing like crazy. And it's driven by all the trends we've been talking about. More devices, more connectivity, more demand for speed and safety.
Exactly.
Okay, so the established leaders are doing well.
They are, yeah. They have the experience.
And very sourced.
The brand recognition.
Yeah, all that.
And they're investing in R&D.
Okay.
Particularly in magnetic and capacitive isolation technologies.
So they're not resting on their laurels.
No, they're staying ahead of the game.
But there are new players emerging.
There are.
And they're challenging the status quo.
Yeah, they're finding new ways to do things.
And focusing on specific needs.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's the takeaway for our listeners?
The digital isolator market is a really exciting space.
Yeah.
It's dynamic and it's growing fast. And understanding the key players,
their strengths and their strategies,
can give you a real insight into the future of electronics.
Yeah, this is tech that's going to be everywhere.
It already is, and it's only going to become more important.
So it's worth paying attention to.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one last question for our listeners.
Okay.
Given how fast things are changing, especially with electric vehicles and autonomous driving, what breakthroughs in digital isolation technology do you think are going to be most critical in the next 5 years?
That's a great question. I mean, this is an area where even small improvements can have a big impact.
On the capabilities of these systems.
Yeah, and on their safety.
Right, because it's all connected.
It is. That's the key takeaway.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
We'll be back next time with another fascinating look
at
the tech that's shaping our world.
Looking forward to it.
See you then.
See.